D2D in the chat room talking with Marcus, Temple, Kelly, and Lazarius. We were talking a little bit about peer pressure when we left. So I know that I'm sure it's prevalent in the college world. It's still prevalent in my world when people allow it. And not just that, but I'm going to say peer pressure / bullying. Speak to that from a college perspective for me.
I think for me, the bullying side, I haven't really experienced like anybody doing that or anybody like receiving that.
Mm-hmm.
But peer pressure wise, like I've seen a lot of friends, like college friends, like I don't know, fall into the trap of like, oh, this is my college best friend. She's doing it, I can do it. Or he's doing it, I can do it. It's just like people changing their majors like the same as their friends. Like this happens a lot in my school.
Wow.
I'm just like, I don't really know. Or people like, I just could never like imagine paying for something and then like just stopping just because my boyfriend wants me to. You know, they're just like, and like coming home, I just like, especially after I've already started, like if I start something, I'm gonna finish it. It's just like, I can't imagine that. Like, no.
So fitting in for you isn't important because that was going to be.
It would be important to me if I was like wasn't paying for it or just. I mean, like I have scholarships and stuff, but if it was just like high school, like I cared about it more definitely because it's just like about like clothes and stuff in that aspect. But if I'm like here and I'm paying for it, like an education to like better myself, like really better myself, like if that's my mindset, then I really don't care. Like I'm going to class, I'm going to sleep. You know, I'll see you tomorrow. We got the weekend. Like, there's always more time. That's my thing.
Yeah. And I feel like some people just look at peer pressure as being like drugs and alcohol, and it's not always that.
That's not
9 out of 10. It's not even that.
Okay.
Because how I look at it is, as far as I've been in college, the most peer pressure I've seen is dropouts, and that's just more so people giving up. Like he said, people have friends that just, you know, I'm gonna drop out, this get tough. You got people who not going to class because of their boyfriends. You got people who are relying on their athletic boyfriends, you know, to make it, and they want to do anything. And it's kind of like, what was your point?
That's a really good.
It's so like people just say like, well, you know, growing up we were told don't let anybody peer pressure you to do drugs or drinking.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like when you get to college, in a sense, it looks like everybody does it. So you wouldn't even classify it as being peer pressure. Now you do have some kids who never did drugs or alcohol back at home, and they do get to college and they do want to try it. But I wouldn't necessarily categorize it as like peer pressure, because I mean people do try different things. Like in order to drink, you had to try a drink. In order to smoke, you had to smoke. So I wouldn't even say more so peer pressure unless you knew like you would still to yourself like I'm not doing it, or you just felt tough like this is the only thing I can lean on is drugs, alcohol, let me do it now. I would look at that as peer pressure, but like just trying it, I wouldn't classify it as peer pressure because I feel like everybody has a chance to try something. Now, if it continues to happen or you try to put other people on it because you've done it, then yes, you're peer pressure. And if they told you several times, no, I don't want to do that, and you're still pressing the issue about it, or even if you try like a new drug or something and you're under the influence, there's peer pressure too. Like, you know you have no business doing it. So I just feel like it's just different ways of doing it, but the most I've seen is dropouts.
I would definitely say peer pressure is, I think it's bigger in college than it is in high school. Because honestly, when a student is in high school, you know, they're still under their parents' roof and their life is still controlled in a sense.
Very good point.
But when you get to college, like that's all out the window. And then you have some students who don't even know themselves truly. And so that's when peer pressure becomes a big problem. And for sometimes it's just like, it's comparisons a lot. You see your friends like, man, like homegirl got an internship, homegirl got a job, she got her own place, she paying her own car note, like, you know, she's doing big things. But everybody's success story and everybody's journey is different. And that's something that somebody has to learn on their own. Like, you can talk somebody's head off like, hey, it's okay, you got it, you're gonna be good. But until they realize it for themselves, that's when the peer pressure and comparison stops. So, yeah.
Me personally, I don't see a lot of peer pressure.
You don't have time. You really don't.
I mean, honestly,
I'm so serious.
I
mean, I'm saying it. You do?
Yeah.
See, I'm thinking like with the type of courses that I'm so serious that you take and all that I would think it takes up a lot of your time, which if that's a true statement, that means that when we keep ourselves occupied, you know what I'm saying, we don't have as much time to see those things that, you know, would be a hindrance.
I mean, it's really dependent upon the person. So, like, the second semester of my freshman year, I had a 3.9 GPA, and that was with taking, like, you know, physics, chemistry, calculus, all those things. And I still went out majority weekends, and I mean, I still drunk. Like, it was no different than a normal college student's life. But I mean, I feel like since I do give myself like that extra buffer of like waking up at 7 a.m. Every day, like I sometimes do that on the weekends too, and like I'll start work then. Like it's plenty of time in the day if you make time in the day. So like, although my classes are hard, I feel like college is hard to everyone. So like, no matter what the major is, so like, I would hate to be a journalism major just because I don't want to sit there and write a paper, and it'd probably take me forever to just sit there and write a paper. But like, for my classes, it's more so practice. So like, I could do practice on any given day, and it's about how much practice do you need to learn it. So like, I may not need as much practice to learn it as somebody else may need to learn it. But that's just like the difference in, you know, the way that people handle it. And you know, when you're in your major, you're in a major that you're passionate about. So it's like, when I sit there and I do my work, I like to do it. It doesn't take me long to do my work. It doesn't really affect me in any type of negative way, time-wise, to just sit there and do my work because I love what I'm doing. So like, I feel like the only difference would be like if somebody didn't love what they were doing. An example, like if they were with the peer pressure and changing their major and things like that, I do see people change their major a lot. It could be because they're discouraged or they just gave up or anything like that. But
that is an awesome point. So how many of you are in the major that you chose?
I changed my major like 2 months ago.
I changed my major the week before I went to college freshman year, and then I changed it again the week before again this year. But I'm set now. Like, we're set now.
And I asked that because is your uncle in medical?
yes,
in the medical field?
OBGYN.
Okay, so like I felt like it was expected of me, like to be a nurse, right? So I had started with the nursing thing, and although now I'm in education, and so, but I would not change my journey or anything because I don't know what like exams and all of that are like in med school, but for nursing, I felt like I was in boot camp or something. I just the nursing exams are not your typical, what's the right answer? There's always a best answer. There's never a right per se. And so had it not been for that journey, there are probably a lot of other things that I would have done. Now, most people probably wouldn't feel that way. I tend to be the person that likes to have a mindset that I'm going to do everything I can not to have regrets and take whatever my journey has been and learn that it had a part or a place, you know what I'm saying, in my life and what I've done. But I just wonder how many of you like did what you wanted to do, because doing what you love to do is so important. I tell people, when you wake up in the morning or when you go to bed at night and think about getting up the next morning, you should be really elated about what you're going to be doing the next day, particularly if you've spent years preparing for it. That's how you should feel about it. Yeah, as human beings, we might be tired today and didn't really feel like getting up doing anything. But when you do what you love, it's easy. So easy. Yeah.
I think like it really, for me, it was just like what I was around. Like when I really just like experienced college, I was like, because my parents always pushed like medical on me because I was like basically pre-med, everything at first. And then I kind of like, but I've always been like in between business and pre-med. And so like experiencing college and just like talking to both kinds of people, taking different kind of classes, I just kind of like, what do I really want to do? Like, what is like I want to do? Like, I'm kind of like stuck at first because I kept asking everybody like, what should I do? Instead of just like, what do I really want to do? So once I like really answered the question for myself, I like really like set my path.
So for me, like, I'm a sports girl. So at first, when I first started college, I was majoring in journalism and electronic media, and it was more so just me having the sideline reporting aspect of sports, which is basically on the camera, front and center. But gradually, like, just my experience being in those classes, being the only black kid, I honestly had to sit back and ask myself, like, is this truly what I want? Like, I know I want to be sports related, but is this for me? Like, I don't want to feel like I have to compete for my position just because I am the only black person, or like somebody said something to me and I feel like antagonized and like, you know, just feel like somebody is constantly saying something to me because I'm the black kid. And it's like, okay, I get it's hard to get in this position and I'm a female. So even that, I have to work 10 times harder to be what I want to be.
Right.
So it's like, I don't have no issue with that. But is that what, like, am I willing to take the risk for this major? And I had to ask myself that. And I also thought about me just saying agent works, and I was like, well, that's not bad. That's still a nice little income and stuff. I'll just be behind the scenes. Nobody really has to know of me, but as long as I make my money and do what I need to do to make a change for my family, then that's fine. So that's not shifting gears over to sports management because I don't mind doing that. And more so, there's more so connections. That's a one-on-one basis with people and players rather than me just being on camera and might mess up every now and then because the camera in my face. And people are screaming, you can't really hear anything. When people do interviews, you think, like, you wonder how people on TV, like, hear so loud and clear, and you never hear them. Like, when you're in person, you don't hear the people mouth moving. It's just, like, cameras. You know, it's just a lot. And it's, like, I really didn't want that for myself, so I was just more so, like, let me just sit here and handle the business, handle contracts, be a businesswoman about it, and go about my day.
Yeah. So we're going to turn the page a little bit. I'm sure that all of you guys you go to church, you grew up in church, and I just want to know, how deeply rooted are you in your faith? How has being in college changed that, if at all? Has there been any quote unquote outside influence to change the way you think about your faith and about God and so forth?
So, like, for me, Conway is kind of a Bible Belt. So there's literally, once you get on Dave Ward, there's about 16 churches next to each other, and I kid you not, that's really how it is. And so it's not necessarily that my faith has changed, but I just haven't found a church home, and that's really crazy, simply because, like I just said, there's numerous churches there, but it's just not like, you know, at home church. And so that's the reason why I find myself not going so much, because, you know, at my church at home, I've learned, like, not everybody is supposed to pray over you and stuff because their intentions are not pure.
Yeah.
And so when I got on campus, like, there's different Christian organizations, and they're like, come on, let me pray for you for your you know, yeah, and I was just like, no, I'm good. And it was, like, really shocking to them because, you know, everybody was getting prayed for, and I was just sitting there on some, yeah, I'm not about to pray for me, you know, because I don't know you.
Right.
But it's just, like, finding somewhere where I'm comfortable.
But you have brought your belief system with you from home. Okay.
And see, for me, like, my mother can attest. I'm not gonna say I didn't grow up in the church, because I did. Not gonna say my parents made me go, but they did. Like, I'm not like a person who's like, ooh, mom, like, I gotta go to church. Like, this just not me. And I don't know if it's just like my mother's a very spiritual person, but my dad isn't. He goes to church, but it's like, it's way two different radars. So it's kind of like, with me being a daddy's girl growing up, I never understood, like, why she was so spiritual. And I get, like, the more I learn, like, I get, like, my grandma's the same way, which is probably like my mom's that way. Like, they're just spiritual human beings. And it's kind of like, I just feel like I have to find myself in that, but not saying that I don't believe in, like, God of that sort, but it's to the point where I have enough belief that, like, can't nobody change it. Like, if I go away, you can't convert me to an atheist. Like, this dead. Like, I might kind of look at you like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm firm in what I believe in. I just don't go, like, going to church doesn't make you go to heaven. Like, I don't know why people feel like that push you into heaven, because it doesn't. Because you're still sinning. Like, it's also, like, what you do with Jesus and, like, how you do your sins, how you forgive, like, how you ask for forgiveness. And so I just feel like people also have the, like, how do I put it? Like, people have church confused in a sense. And so it's kind of like people, like, older people are like, you need to go to church, you know, you need to get saved. And it's like, I see what you're saying, but just because y'all go to church do not mean y'all saved. Like the people, and to me, people who in church, they be the most turned and sinful. So it's kind of like you be contradicting yourself. Like you want me to be in church, but y'all like, you know, like y'all be turned just like us. We just don't go. Like y'all feel like y'all go to church. Like, woo, I'm going to church. God gonna forgive me, and it's like that's not how that works.
Yeah.
So like, it's just different for me.
Piggybacking off that, I don't understand the emphasis on going to church from people older than us because a lot of their mistakes that they try to prevent us from making, like they had to make them and then they had to learn from it, which put them in the faith that they're in today. So like I feel like you have to let people learn on their own. That's one thing, and then like going to church, like how she said, that's not an automatic ticket to heaven. Many of the people in church involve themselves in. If church was all that, you wouldn't hear about issues. Within the church, you wouldn't hear about, like, even in my church alone, I've heard about, like, people that's deacons cheating on their wives and all these other things. So, like, it doesn't determine the type of person that I am. Like, I wake up every day and, I may pray, not may pray. I mean, I do pray, and every day that I live to be a good person, and I live to, like, think about others, and I live to, like, truly embody what's supposed to be a good Christian, but I don't really go to church like that. And my parents, I mean, they wanted me to go to church like that, but like once I got to school, like first of all, I mean, when I go to church, I really want to, do you want a revolution? You know what I'm saying? I really want somebody like to involve that energy. And oftentimes, many of the churches around, like they use a Bible verse and then they teach you a lesson, but it's just like hearing a lesson in school. Like you don't really know it sometime until you apply it.
Implement it.
So like I feel like life is its own like lesson. Life is like something that you can't really get from a church that doesn't really equivalent to how good of a person that you could end up becoming, and it doesn't really equivalent to your faith. Because I do have strong faith within just the Lord in general. And just like the things that he's done for me and the places that he's put me in, the positions that he's put me in. But I also think that, if he made everybody to be how they are and he knew how they were going to be, then I don't feel like he did what he did for no reason, if that makes sense. So like just the fact that I don't really go to church like that, but I'm still, oftentimes people would say like I'm a great person and like I'm very selfless and things like that. Like going to church didn't make me who I am. Life made me who I am. So that's really all I gotta say about that.
I think for me, like I'm really probably similar to all of them. I'm deeply rooted in my faith, but I just don't like people who try to preach to me, about my faith, because I just think like you gotta let people experience stuff before you try to really like get them to get it, like implement it in their life. So like for me, I kind of live on like a let me see it basis, or like let me go through it, kind of like I'm so independent that I kind of want to go through it to see it for myself, not like a dark road or just like really like oh it's just horrible, but just like let me experience, because my mom really tries to prevent me from seeing a lot of stuff. Like she makes me independent, but she like still holds up that shield, especially going to college. But overall we're doing good so far, we still going. But 2020, my New Year resolution is to get even more deeply rooted. So yeah.
I was gonna say, I do see like older people on their farm all the time in church. Like it's really not no different. Like I mean, I don't want to call nobody out, but like, come on now, like you on your phone, but then you supposed to be talking about.
You're not practicing what you're preaching.
Literally, like the sermon could be about cheating on your wife. All right, so if 90% of the people in there didn't cheat on their wife, then they're not really listening to what you have to say. Because it's like how is this applicable to me? Yeah. You go to church not knowing what the sermon is, and then it could definitely like not be applicable to you, and now you're just sitting there really not listening because it's not applicable to you whatsoever, if that makes sense. Like I would rather just read the Bible and get deeply rooted in my faith myself than to go to church to hear somebody else talk about an unrelated topic to me. It's like taking a class that you're not interested in.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna go to break, and this is our last break before we end the show, this edition, and we're gonna come back and talk about relationships from your view, and I'd like to hear that probably now versus high school. But anyway, so we'll be back. We're on 94.7 FM, the Gospel Giant, D2D. We'll be right back.